While we may not be able to stop time, a small number of travelers will be lucky enough to visit a destination that is seemingly frozen in time. The small, historic copper mining town of Kennicott, Alaska is exactly that. Hi, I'm Tiffany from Destination for Vacation. Thanks for joining me. Located in the center of the nation's largest national park, Wrangell-St. Elias, Kennicott was designated a National Historic Landmark in 1986, and it was acquired by the National Park Service in 1998. It's considered the best remaining example of early 20th century copper mining. The town's history goes back to the summer of 1900, when a patch of green hillside was spotted by two prospectors seeking to find good grazing ground for their pack horses. To their surprise, as they got closer, they saw that the green was not from blades of grass, but was actually the glint of copper ore. Prospector Jack Smith reported back that there's so much of the stuff sticking out of the ground that it looks like a green sheep pasture in Ireland when the sun is shining at its best. Samples of this discovery, labeled as the Bonanza Mine outcrop, showed that it was one of the richest copper deposits ever found, up to 70% pure. According to the National Park Service, a mining engineer who was in the area began buying up shares of the Bonanza claim. But the area was very remote, and transportation was needed to get the copper to market. Without that transportation, this find was absolutely worthless. Collaborating with J.P. Morgan and the Guggenheim family to form the Alaska Syndicate, Michael J. Henney, the builder of the White Pass and Yukon Railroad, was soon hired to build a railroad for these mines. This involved a grueling 4-year process of building bridges and laying 196 miles of rail bed in rugged terrains between the mining area and the town of Cordova, with temperatures sometimes reaching 40 degrees below zero. An entire steamship was disassembled and its pieces hauled from Valdez to the Copper River so that equipment could be brought to the area by dog sled, horse, and steamship to start mining the ore even before the railroad was completed. Construction of the town of Kennicott began in 1907, with the last building built in 1925. The town's name derived from the misspelling of the adjacent 27-mile-long Kennicott Glacier. Stand out back of the visitor center and you'll see it. Kind of. The glacier's ice is covered by rocks and dirt, which comes from the erosion of the surrounding valley rock. In 1911, just 10 short days after the completion of the railroad, the first train left Kennicott with $250,000 worth of copper. Thus, a boomtown was born. While the company's general office was originally built out of logs, more conventional frame construction was used for its 4 later additions, as well as in the other buildings in town. Houses were built for company managers, apartments and bunkhouses for workers, and stores to provide goods for the town's residents. Nearly all of the town's buildings were painted in the company's colors of deep red and white. The centerpiece of the town was, and still is, its 14-story concentration mill, which started off in 1910 as a 6-story building with a capacity of 100 tons of ore per day. It was later expanded to eventually reach 14 stories with a daily ore capacity of 1,200 tons. 4 mines, which were over 3 miles away up the side of the Bonanza Ridge, fed the mill. A 16,000-foot aerial tramway system with 4 tram lines was built between 1909 and 1918 to transport ore from the mines at an elevation of 6,600 feet down to the concentration mill, which had an elevation of 2,200 feet. Buckets filled with 750 pounds of ore were sent down the aerial tramways at a rate of about 1 every 52 seconds. The job of the bucket chasers would be to catch the bucket, dump it into the mill's grizzly, and then pound the bucket 3 or 4 times with a big mallet to get all the wet ore out before putting it back on a cable and sending it back up to the mine. Then, the bucket chaser would have to run back to the next bucket and start this whole process over. Waste rock from the ore was used to help level the land of the valley's steep hillsides for building. The Alaska Syndicate was later reorganized on April 12, 1915 as the Kennicott Copper Corporation. By 1916, the town had a fully operational ammonia leaching plant, which allowed the recovery of a higher percentage of copper ore from what was formerly considered waste rock. The town's machine shop fabricated and repaired mechanical equipment that was necessary to the mining operation. The town also had a manager's house, mess hall, hospital, five-unit apartment building, barn, guest house, cottages, and a recreation hall. To power all the industrial machinery needed for a successful operation, the town also had a state-of-the-art power plant, topped by 4 towering black smokestacks. It produced electricity and steam heat, which was sent to nearly every building in the camp. By 1918, the town had company stores, family housing, a large 3-story bunkhouse, a dairy barn, a refrigeration plant, a 2-room school, and even a tennis court and movie house. Because the buildings were wood-framed, fire hose houses were located throughout the town. About 250 people lived in the town of Kennicott, with hundreds more living in the town of McCarthy, just 5 miles away. By 1938, there were more than 100 buildings in the area. Over a 27-year mining period, over $200 million worth of copper ore was mined from Kennicott. Because of its remote location and extreme climate, higher salaries were paid than could be found at the time in the continental U.S., attracting men who were willing to live in this mining camp and conduct grueling work 7 days a week for nearly every day out of the year. Paid at a rate of anywhere from $4 to $5 a day, many miners even slept and ate in the mines and rarely came down the hill to the company town of Kennicott. The company deducted about $30 a month from workers' pay for room and board. At its height, about 600 men worked in the mines or mills at Kennicott. Those not living in the mines often stayed in the town's bunkhouses, sending money to their families back home. During its operation, the Kennicott Copper Corporation invested in the development of the town and provided varied social activities to develop a sense of pride and belonging among the workers and their families in this small, close-knit mining community. This investment actually lowered overall operational costs because it boosted employee morale and retention. With the mines and mill closed only 2 days out of the year, on Christmas Day and the 4th of July, the town hosted frequent social gatherings to provide brief moments of relaxation and a diversion from the grueling work and nearly constant darkness of the area's harsh winter days. Today, you can visit the restored recreation hall, which was the social heart of the community, hosting a variety of gatherings like movies that were shown twice a week, Saturday dances, and holiday celebrations. At Christmas time, the town's children would put on a performance and then receive a visit from Santa, accompanied by wonderful gifts. On Independence Day, everyone in Kennicott would head on down the hill to compete in races with the residents of McCarthy. The Kennicott Copper Corporation even sponsored the annual baseball game between the two towns, offering a $200 prize to the winning team. It's rumored that the Kennicott team even once lured a pitcher from the Continental States up to the town just so they could win that prize. Knowing that the supply of ore was limited, the Kennicott Copper Corporation began investing in other mines, starting with the lower 48 states and in the country of Chile. After producing nearly $200 million worth of copper and silver, with $100 million in profit, the Kennicott Mill Camp and Mines were closed in 1938, with the last train leaving Chitina on November 11, 1938. The company vacated the camp and donated its railroad and property to the Alaska Territory. Some private mining continued, and a few homesteaders stayed in the area, but most families moved on to other opportunities. Thanks to its investments in other mines, the Kennicott Copper Corporation is still in existence today, operating mines worldwide. Visitors to Kennicott will find plenty to see and do. Start with a quick stop at Kennicott's Visitor Center, which is located right at the entrance to the town. As the second of the two visitor centers in Wrangell-St. Elias National Park, it's housed in a small building on what might be considered the town's main street. Here, you can obtain a stamp for your national park passport, receive a map of the park, and find out the schedule for various park ranger talks. You'll also be able to see some mining specimens. Next to the Visitor Center is an information and gathering area for the various tour companies. They specialize in offering a variety of tours, at an additional fee, to help visitors fully experience Wrangell-St. Elias National Park. The more adventurous might choose river rafting, mountaineering, or multi-day hikes. Ice cave tours are also offered, as well as explorations of the nearby Root Glacier. Or you might choose to hike one of the trails that depart from the Kennicott Mine area on your own. One of the more popular hikes is the 4-mile round-trip Root Glacier Trail, rated as easy to moderate with relatively level terrain. With its views of Mount Blackburn, Regal Mountain, and Donohoe Peak, you'll be rewarded at the end of this trail with close-up views of the Root Glacier. Those wanting an even closer look can strap on some crampons and walk directly on it. Or if you would like to explore the relics of an old mine site, take the steep 10-mile round-trip Jumbo Mine Trail. As its name suggests, this trail leads directly up to the old Jumbo Mine, which sits high on the ridgeline and offers beautiful views of the Kennicott Valley below. If that trail doesn't have enough of an elevation gain to satisfy the thrill seeker in you, a third option is the Bonanza Mine Trail, which climbs 4.5 miles up for a 3,800-foot gain in elevation, with historic artifacts scattered around the landscape. When Kennicott closed the mine in 1938, the company pulled out the support system in the tunnels in order to process the high-grade copper ore it was made of. As a result, the mines are closed because they're unstable and prone to collapse. But this trail leads to spectacular views of Mount Blackburn and the Kennicott Glacier, which on clear days can be seen from almost the entire route. Those visitors more interested in the buildings and artifacts within the town itself will find plenty to explore. Walk along the town at your own pace. Informational signs are posted to let you know the purpose of each building, as well as providing some historical context. Since 1998, the National Park Service has been working to stabilize and restore many of the mining town's buildings. Visitors can step back into the past and explore the artifacts and captivating stories of Kennicott at the town's restored post office and general store. On the post office side, you can watch movies that feature interviews with the town's former residents, providing a fascinating glimpse into a long-lost way of life. There are about 40 remaining original Kennicott Copper Company buildings in town. All of Kennicott's buildings that are open to visitors are self-guided, with the exception of the 14-story concentration mill. The National Park Service and volunteers have been working to stabilize and restore this site. Currently, the only way to go inside the mill is to purchase the 2-hour Kennicott Mill Town Tour, which is offered by the St. Elias Alpine Guides Tour Company. At the time of this recording, the tour costs $34 per adult and $17 per child and is offered 3 times a day. Online reservations are always a good idea, especially if you're only going to be in the area for a few hours. You'll start at the top of the mill where you'll be given a hard hat, and you'll gradually make your way down via some ladder-like steps, which aren't always the easiest to navigate. So if you have mobility issues or you're a little scared of heights, this is not the tour for you. Once inside, you'll get a sense of how dangerous, loud, and grueling this work was. Thanks to the area's remoteness, the concentrator contains all of its original machinery, despite not operating since 1938. With raw material coming in at the top and copper ore coming out the bottom, each floor in between had a designated purpose to sort or shake, or sometimes both, the copper from the limestone. Your guide will explain this process as you make your way down through the mill. When the Kennicott Copper Corporation shut down operations here in 1938, the town's buildings, machinery, equipment, and furnishings were simply left behind. Today, visitors can see most of these artifacts while walking through the various buildings. Visitors to the general office can see the company vault, which still retains some of the documents used in Kennicott's operation. Getting to the Kennicott Mines National Historic Landmark, which is located in the middle of the Wrangell-St. Elias National Park, is an adventure in and of itself. It's situated next to the Kennicott Glacier and is surrounded by the Wrangell Mountains, which stand 14,000 feet above the town. You can choose to drive or fly in. It's about a 7.5-hour drive from Anchorage, a 9.5-hour drive from Fairbanks, and a 5.5-hour drive from Valdez. If you plan on driving directly from the Denali National Park area, plan on a drive of about 11 hours. You may want to consider breaking the drive up into 2 days and spending the night at the Copper River Princess Wilderness Lodge. From there, it will take approximately 3.5 hours to reach Kennicott. This is what we decided to do for our first trip to Kennicott. Another option would be to stay at a small inn or cabin closer to McCarthy Road. The last 60 miles of the drive between Chitina and McCarthy is on a state-maintained gravel road that was built right on top of the train tracks of the old company-owned Copper River and Northwestern Railroad. Originally, gravel was just poured over the tracks, so some of the old railroad spikes would occasionally pop up and ruin the tires of the cars driving over it. There are plenty of online horror stories about getting stuck in the middle of nowhere with a flat tire or car damage due to potholes. But in 2012, the state did extensive rehabilitation work on the road, and we had no issues while driving it. Some online sites warn you that many car rental agencies won't allow you to drive on McCarthy Road or other gravel highways. We used National at the Anchorage Airport for our rental and had no driving area restrictions. Granted, we did rent an SUV with 4-wheel drive because we were on a month-long trip and I was nervous about driving this road, given what I'd read on the internet. I was concerned that we could get stuck in the mud if the road wasn't maintained well. But once we were on it, I realized that those worries were for nothing. The other thing we did was to stick to the speed limit, which is 35 miles per hour for most of the road. We saw a variety of cars as well as a few RVs and camper trailers using McCarthy Road. So don't feel like you have to have an SUV to drive to Kennicott. We had sunny weather driving in and then rainy weather as we left, and we experienced absolutely no issues either way. nor did we see any cars broken down on the side of the road. But I will say that we drove this road early in the season, in June. My understanding is that the state refreshes the gravel of the road in spring as the tourist season starts up, and then one more time during the summer before the tourist season starts to wind down. So if you're driving the road closer to late August, there may be more potholes. But given our experience and seeing the other types of cars on the road, it seems like some of those dire warnings you find on the internet are a bit outdated. Once you reach the end of McCarthy Road, you'll find a small parking lot to park your car. Look for the sign labeled Base Camp Kennicott. It's pretty much the last lot on the left before you reach the end of the road. Personal cars of visitors are not allowed past the footbridge. If you're staying at the Kennicott Glacier Lodge, there's no charge for parking. You'll check in at the little hut and let them know how long you'll be staying, and then you'll gather your belongings and walk across the footbridge that spans the Kennicott River. There's no assistance provided, so keep this in mind if you have mobility issues. The walk across the footbridge is very pleasant and scenic with beautiful mountain views. Once you reach the other side of the river, you'll notice two small shaded bench areas where you could sit down and rest while waiting for the lodge's shuttle. If you're staying at the Kennicott Glacier Lodge, a complimentary shuttle van is provided on the hour from noon to 8 p.m., at least at the time of this recording, to transport you the 5 miles up the hill to the lodge. For those visitors not staying at the Kennicott Glacier Lodge, there are 2 other shuttles available which will take you from the footbridge to the small town of McCarthy, and then between McCarthy and Kennicott. If you don't feel like driving or you just want to save some time, visitors also have the option of flying to the area. It's about a 2-hour flight from Anchorage or a 25-minute flight from Chitina. During the tourist season, Wrangell Mountain Air offers 3 flights a day between Chitina and McCarthy, soaring through a couple of mountain passes so you'll have spectacular views as you fly right over the Kennicott Glacier and land on the gravel airport strip that's conveniently located between the town of McCarthy and Kennicott. Kennicott is one of the most unique, scenic destinations I've ever been to. There's nothing like it. While you can certainly take a one-day excursion to the area, consider booking a room for a few nights at the Kennicott Glacier Lodge, so you'll have this mining town to yourself in the evenings after the day trippers leave. It's truly an experience like no other. Thanks for joining me today. Be sure to also watch Destination for Vacation's review of the Kennicott Glacier Lodge linked here. Until then, here's hoping that your next adventure is just around the corner.